Good afternoon, guys. We're going to start Chapter 2, Ecosystems and Biomes, Section 1, Energy Flow in the Ecosystems. Now, you should be on a whole new piece of paper, and at the top of the paper should be titled Chapter 2, Ecosystems and Biomes. Underneath that, just like how I have it on the screen here, it should say Section 1, Energy Flow in Ecosystems. So we're going to break down Chapter 2, Section 1 into some smaller video clips just because the content is really important for you to get, and so if you're not understanding one piece of the section, you can go back and watch that specific piece. Otherwise, the video could be really, really long because I want to provide some good examples for you. So please make sure you ask questions if you don't understand. So we're going to talk first about energy roles. Each of the organisms in an ecosystem fills the energy role of a producer, consumer, or decomposer. We're going to talk about all three of those roles. So the energy roles are producer, consumer, and decomposer. Organisms' energy roles determine how it obtains its energy, how it interacts with other organisms. So you're going to figure out what role you play. A producer, our first one, is going to actually play the role where it's the one that produces, obviously from the name, its own food. We do not go stand out in the sun and just bask in the sun and go, oh, I'm so full, okay? Instead, we actually have to consume and eat foods. So organisms that use sunlight to make their own food are going to be our producers. They are the source of all food in the ecosystem. If producers die, we don't have food as consumers. If we don't have sunlight, producers can't make their own food. So ultimately, if we have no sunlight, everyone eventually would have to end up dying off. A consumer is an organism that obtains energy by feeding on other organisms. So you are a consumer. Now, we have 4 different types of consumers, and let's talk about each one of those. So make sure you understand that there's 4 types of consumers. They're herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, and scavengers. Our first one is an herbivore. These are organisms that eat only producers. They can only, because of the way their teeth are developed and the way their stomach and the rest of their systems are developed, they can only eat plants, okay? So these include rabbits, deer, caterpillars, basic organisms that eat only plants. Carnivores are organisms that their main diet consists of meat. They are meat-consuming organisms. Yes, you might see a lion eating grass because it needs it for its stomach because it's going to throw up, okay? But it's not a normal food for it to consume. So carnivores are things like lions and spiders. They eat only meat, okay? Mountain lions eat only meat. They'll eat you. Consumers that eat both plants and animals are going to be omnivores. Most humans are omnivores, except for the weird vegetarians. Just kidding, but they're out there, okay? So then they would be considered herbivores. But naturally, we are, by nature, omnivores. Bears are omnivores. Crows are omnivores. So any organism that's going to eat both plants and animals, they have the option, okay? So our food selection is a lot higher. Now, scavengers, these are the carnivores that feed on bodies of dead organisms. These are catfish and vultures. They're going to eat anything that's already dead. Raccoons are scavengers too. They'll even eat brains. They're gross. All right, so then we have our decomposers. If an ecosystem had only producers and consumers, the raw materials of life would stay locked up in waste. So basically, if we didn't have decomposers, dead bodies would pile up on Earth and it would be a really stinky place to live. So decomposers are very, very important. They're going to break down any organism that dies and return those nutrients into the soil. So ultimately, we're completing that whole circle of life, just like on the Lion King. So the plants are going to actually consume those nutrients, and then they're going to take those nutrients and they're going to grow and be actually better plants and have more nutrients for us. So these nutrients keep getting passed. It's kind of like that energy thing, not created nor destroyed, just transferred. So the nutrients are now being transferred back into the soil. So things like mushrooms and bacteria, they're great for us to have in our ecosystem because they're going to break down those dead organisms and return those nutrients back to the soil. Let's take a look real quick at an example here. So let's look at the roles here. We have a tree, a maple tree, a papilla caterpillar, a cardinal, go birds, and decomposer, which is the mushrooms. So here our producer is the tree. So the role that the tree has is to produce oxygen and actual plant life that other organisms can consume. So the leaves on the tree provide food for the caterpillar. That caterpillar is then eaten by the cardinal, which is in this case an omnivore. They eat both seeds and worms and caterpillars for survival. When the cardinal dies, eventually its body needs to be broken down, and that's going to be broken down by the decomposers. Now, the unique thing is if that tree ever dies, that tree is going to be broken down over time by the mushrooms. A lot of times you'll see mushrooms growing on the forest floor on trees, and they're actually breaking down and decomposing nutrients. So part of the tree might actually be dying, and that's what the decomposers are doing. So these are our energy roles, and we're going to continue talking about them throughout the section. If you have questions, please come see me. I'll see you later. Have a great night.